safe space. We ain't never give a reason you should hide. Compile all your questions, we taking the quest. Join Tarsha on this journey to discover the rest. Go.
Welcome to the Adoption Journey podcast. I am your host, Tarsha Smith, and welcome back, family, to another adoption journey. I am so excited to have a fellow adoptee with me by the name of Adrian. But before we dive into his story, let me remind you, first, click subscribe and like, share, tell all your people. And then you can also check us out over on Patreon as well, okay? So, hey, Adrian.
Hey, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming by and sharing your story. So I'm going to dive right in with my very first favorite two questions. My first question is, are you a transracial adoptee, meaning were you adopted from by someone that is not your same race?
Yes, exactly. I'm a transracial adoptee.
Okay. So that means that you knew early on that you were adopted.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Let's go there. Tell me how, tell me how you were adopted, if you know that story, like your parents,
Yeah, I
your
do.
adopted parents. Okay, let's go.
I do. So, I was born in Huancayo, Peru, which is in South America.
Okay.
For those who don't know where Peru is, some people don't. And I was born in the mountains because Peru is very vast. There's like the jungle, the coast, the everything. And I was born in the mountains in the year 1991.
Okay.
At the time then, Peru was going through a civil war pretty much, and a lot of political unrest. And there still is a lot of political unrest, but anyways. And so pretty much my parents here, my mom is American and my dad is Canadian, from Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much they got a call. I'm not sure, like, I'll say this, like my mother, my adoptive mother can't have her own children. So they decided they wanted to adopt. So Peru at the time was going through a bad time and they got a call. I'm not sure if they really used an agency or something like that, but they said they got a call and like I was ready to be adopted. So I was adopted at like 2 weeks old. And
Your parents living in Canada, or were they living in the United States?
No, they were living in Canada because my mom's from the States,
Canada.
but she moved here like a long time ago. But she still has a bunch of family in the States in Oregon. She's from Oregon.
Got you. So they get a call from Canada. They leave Canada, come to Peru. I wonder who called them.
Yeah, like I've never really asked that, but I'm assuming an agency, you know?
Okay. And they get there and
they get there, then they meet me, they meet my biological parents, my dad, my mom, my grandmother, my sister. My sister is like a year older than me, so she was still a baby, you know.
Yeah.
And then after that, my dad went back to Canada because I have an adopted sister from China, so he went back to Canada to go get her.
Hold on. They get there and they meet your bio family.
Yeah, I have pictures with all four of them together.
Okay. Do you know why you were given? Because they give you up and your sister, or just you?
No, just me.
Okay. And do you know why?
Well, like I've met my biological mom. I've been in reunion since 2010, but I mean, pretty much like I mean, even to this day, like their economical situation of my family there is not good.
All right.
And even then too, like my mom couldn't like take care of me then, and things were like they were going through like civil war, like I said. So it was just really hard to just find like food and things like that. So like I think that was more the reason, just because they couldn't afford to keep me. Okay. Yeah. Because like I've seen the documents of like them saying why they wanted to like give me up and things like that, and are pretty much like we can't afford to keep them, you know.
So I wanted. Okay, so your mom, she comes to get this little teeny tiny baby because you're brand new. And do you come right back? And I know you just said that your dad went back home. But do you and your mom stay in Peru for a little
Yes,
bit
I was getting to that. I
Hold
had
on,
to,
G.
since I was like
Okay, go ahead. Go
since you
ahead.
said since you said since you said like little teeny tiny baby, like I was, because I was less than 2 months old, but at the same time too, I was malnurtured. Is that the word? I think so.
Yeah, malnourished. Yeah.
In order for me to like even travel, I have to be like babies have to be a certain weight and things. I'm not sure what it is.
Okay. But you,
So I
whatever it
had
is, you were not.
exactly. So I had to stay in Peru from August. Like my birthday's in August,
Okay.
and I stayed from August of 1991 till December 4th or 5th of 1991 in Peru. So the first 4 months of my life in Peru, because of that, just like like doctor checkups and things before you travel, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I guess paperwork too and things. So my adoptive mother stayed in Peru for 4 months, and
4 months.
that's it. She stayed in Peru for 4 months, but at the time there was a lot of people adopting babies in Peru. Like I have pictures, which I don't know who these people are now because I don't know. But there's like pictures of like me and a bunch of other babies being adopted and things like that. Um, and so my mother stayed there for 4 months and fattened me up, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
and
I
then
bet.
we all met back in Canada in December, and that was like me, my sister, because she's Chinese, and then my dad and my mom. We all met back in Canada in Quebec. So I'm pretty
Okay.
like you see
That's
like
where
my
I'm going. That's where I'm going because as you begin to grow up, now little Adrian, you're a little kid, and you can see I don't look like anybody. Sister's Chinese, mom is
Mhm,
white, American.
mhm.
So tell me the area that you grew up in was predominantly what?
Right.
Okay.
Because I didn't grow up in the city. Like the closest city to me is Montreal, but I didn't grow up in the city. I grew up in the Laurentians, which is like in the country. So at my elementary school, it was predominantly white. I think maybe two black African American kids, something like that. Same thing with high school. Like a few,
Mm,
like a few Asian people, maybe a few like all just French Canadians, pretty much, and white.
yeah.
So I was always like the different colored person,
Right.
but
Darker skin. Yeah.
yeah, but like the thing too is that like my parents, I grew up in a small town, but my parents, since since I think I'm fourth generation, I'm not sure, but my grandfather's grandpa, so my great grandfather, he opened up a general store. And at the time there was no big supermarket where we lived and where I grew up, and so there was the general store, so everybody would go to the general store. So
Mhm.
since everybody would go to the general store, um, everybody knew like my dad and my mom because they both worked there.
Okay.
So that's kind of how like in a way I knew I've always was adopted because of course I can tell like by skin color, but just people always, oh, like how are you, like, oh, like you so whatever, and like, oh, like, yeah, you're from Peru, like not probably unconsciously even saying that to me, like just, oh yeah, you're from Peru, or like,
Do
so it
you
kind of was.
remember I'm sorry, go ahead. Oh, I was gonna ask, do you remember feeling any type of way about that as a kid when people would say
No,
those
no.
things to you, or it
If
was
people
just like
still what?
if when people would point out to you that oh you're from Peru, oh you look like this, oh did
Not really. Like then when I was younger, like 8, 10, like 5 to 10, whatever. I don't think it really like did like affected me or anything.
uh-huh
But I mean, later on, like I definitely later on, it's not that it affected me later on, but just I like was more conscious of
to wake
okay,
yeah
where I'm from, because in high school too. I listened to a lot of hip hop. I still do, but
That 90s
there's
hip
like,
hop.
yeah, 90s, early 2000s.
Yes.
And I'm sure you know him, maybe probably. There's a rapper called Immortal Technique from Brooklyn or Harlem. No, from Harlem, I think,
From
New
Harlem.
York. And I think so.
I might be
Anyways, he's
familiar
kind
with
of like a
music of him.
political hip hop person and stuff, and he's Peruvian.
Oh,
So,
okay.
like when I was listening to a lot of hip hop, like we found out about him and stuff like that, and he's like really big. He's like not, some local guy. And since like I started to listen to him when I was 14, 15 years old, I got that's where like I got interested.
Okay, so hold on, I'm gonna ask you a question. Were your parents intentional about exposing you to your culture and even your sister, because she's Chinese, or are you just
Um,
living life how they live life?
Living life how they live life, but then too, like I know like when my sister was really young, she tried to take Mandarin classes, but I know it's really hard to learn. My dad took it with her, and then she stopped, and then he stopped, but that's it. For
Okay.
me, I never took Spanish classes until later on in life.
Okay.
And like, I mean, then too, like like in the early 2000s, like Peru wasn't really as known for their gastronomy and other things. Now, like
Right.
today, it's really, I think, more like popular or like in or whatever you want to say.
Okay.
But to that, like um that like it's not like they didn't try or anything, but because for example, when they came back from Peru, they had a bag, like a big bag, like a big bag like of Peruvian not material, but Peruvian what is it called? Artisanal, like an artisanal bag of like a bunch of colors and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like pants in it, like llama, like things with llamas in it, things like that. So that
Okay.
bag I've always known I've had, just like pretty much now since I'm older, it's actually mine. And also too, when I was younger too, like I think 7 or something, I don't know. My mother's mom, my grandmother, on my mom's side, she gave me like 2 books about Peru, like about the Incas and just about Peru, like stuff like that. So
Okay.
it was kind of like still like it was there a little bit, like a little taste.
A little taste of
Um,
that.
yeah, but the too like
So
it back then too, it was so hard to get Peruvian products and stuff like that.
to
Now it's
get
so easy. Like now it's so easy. I think before back in the day there might have been maybe
okay.
I
So you
can't
didn't have access to a lot of things for your culture, and so they just kind of did the best they could with what they had to work with. It sounds
yeah,
like.
exactly. Because even me too, like back then, like the world, I guess, was a bit different too, because of like social media and things like that. So like,
Yeah, of
like
course, of course.
like even when I was 14, 15, it was like MSN Messenger, and you could look some stuff up. So I guess in that way, like I could look up, documentaries about Peru, which I did, and about the Incas and things. But if there was like something like I don't know, like a TikTok, but like, I don't really think so, like videos and things like
Yeah,
that,
not then. Yeah, now it's
Yeah,
everything's at your fingertips. But yeah,
exactly. So the
and
world was a bit different then, but then yeah, that's when I first went to Peru.
okay, let me back up a little bit. I want to know about school. Are the kids are they nice? Are you being bullied or anything? Or is everything fine? Like,
Not
did you just
really
have a
because
good
like I was
childhood?
right, because like not really because like I was everybody knew me just because everybody knew me. Maybe thinking like
You
I
was
are
a
you asking
popular
me
guy. Everybody knew
well
me.
well like maybe because like not like I would not like like everybody would want to hang out with me, but everybody knew me. And
Mhm.
maybe
Mhm.
like you're saying, maybe it was because I had different skin. I don't know. Like I don't
Uh-huh.
know, but I like so I always had like my friends and just but I think too like even till now too like everybody kind of knows me, but I think too it's just because like I respect people a lot, and just like if you're like if you're like somebody who doesn't have a lot of friends, or the person who has a lot of friends, I would treat everybody the same and just be really
Mhm.
like that with everybody. I wouldn't
Just
care if
just everybody. So you
Yeah.
would
So
say that you had a good childhood, even though you're adopted.
yeah,
You had a good childhood, yeah.
yeah,
And that is, I asked that question because I need people to understand everybody that's adopted does not have bad childhoods. I
right,
am one of those people. I had a great childhood. I say it all the
right.
time on this show. I'm living my
That's
best
good.
life. Okay,
That's good. Yeah. So
that was my
that's
testimony.
then, and then 2006, 2006, 7, I started listening to Immortal Technique. I got interested in knowing a bit more about Peru and things. And I
Hmm.
took Spanish classes with a friend who I still like. I don't see him often, but like if I see him, it's I've known him
Right.
since we were in elementary, we were
Now, let me
10
ask
or
you this:
something.
when you begin to change, and not change, but you're tapping more
Yeah.
into your culture, are your parents in tune with that? Do they recognize
Well,
that?
that's not really in tune with it because then Spanish for I think a month or something, but nothing crazy.
Okay,
And then after
okay.
that, that's it, um,
So you weren't going all the way to the, like, I'm
no,
going to take
that
all the
was more when
Spanish
I was
classes, all
18,
this Peruvian
19.
food. Okay, okay. So
Right,
we
that
get
was more
through
when
high
I was
school.
18.
Okay, so everything's pretty smooth sailing. All is fine.
Okay. So what happens is I go to Peru for the first time with my dad for Christmas break of high school. I was 15 years old
Okay,
or 14, yeah, 15
okay.
years old. I'm going to try to do a Spanish lesson there for I think 2 or 3 days. I saw Machu Picchu, a really beautiful site, and I saw people who looked like me, and they were all wondering why.
Mm,
They're like, oh, like why don't you speak Spanish? Of course, like I don't really like know what to tell them and stuff, and
you're right.
you know, these kids don't speak Spanish,
Now,
but
on this trip, is this the trip where you would get to meet your bio family or not yet?
no,
Okay.
no, that's the third trip.
Okay, third trip. Okay, first trip we go over and you're just kind of and what does that feel like to go back to Peru? Like how did that
It's a question to this day I still kind of like ask myself because I was so young. So of course a lot of emotion, but like like emotion of excitement and things like that. But
Mhm.
mental wise and things like I can't really think of where my mental mind state was, because I was young and a kid, and I probably was just like inhaling, as you could say, everything. Um,
Right. You were just
and then
excited to be
after that,
traveling probably at that point.
exactly,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly. So that's when the first time I went, and then I went back to Peru a few times after that. I went back to
Okay,
Peru
so
after I went there for 2 weeks with my dad. I learned Spanish, then came home and then went back to high school, continued regular life and everything. Wow, how was your trip? And cool, and it was cool, it was fun, and stuff like that. But I wasn't like, oh, I'm a changed person. I was just like, oh, it was cool, it was really
yeah, I
fun.
went to
I
Peru.
had fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then I went back after high school and took a gap year team, and I went to learn Spanish in South America. So one of the schools was in Chile, so I went to Chile for a bit, and then I went to Peru because they had a sister school in Peru in Lima, in the capital. So I went to
Mhm.
that school, and I continued like my studies. It's just like like classes from like 8 a.m. to like 2 p.m. and like with breaks, of course. And for a while, I was staying with my a teacher from high school she was my teacher for English. Her dad lived in Peru at the time,
Okay.
so she knew I was Peruvian. She knew I was adopted, so she was like, "You could stay with my dad." So I stayed with her dad for like a good month or so, and he toured me around and things like that. And he was really there for me a lot. I give a lot of like thanks to him because he really showed me the ropes and made me feel secure. Because even times when I'd go back, like I was on my own with
You
my,
had somebody.
yeah. So I went to school there for a bit, learned a bit of Spanish. I got, I guess, in a fair. Then like I don't even until then like I think like I could manage to speak and things like that a
Hmm.
bit, but
What does that do for yourself when you're beginning to learn your language? Like you just said, I can understand and I can speak. What does that do for your self-esteem? Just self.
that's a good question because at the beginning it was very hard. Like I didn't think I could do it. I really didn't. I would.
Mm.
I remember being in Chile once, Chile in like 1 or 2 nights, Chile the country, and
Mhm.
like 1 or 2 nights, like I was trying to do homework and I didn't understand it. I couldn't do it, and I was like to my teacher, like who was in Canada, but like my ex English teacher, and I was like, Miss Peterson, I don't think I can do this. Like, it's so hard. And I was like almost in tears, and I think I called her or something. I was almost in tears because it was so hard. Didn't think I could ever learn it. I was just like, like it was really
Mm.
tough. But I kept at it and things. And um, definitely now, like as you said, like what does it do for your self-esteem? Since then, haven't been in a Spanish class to learn since like 2010 or 11, but it doesn't mean that I stopped like my Spanish
Learning.
because I went back to Peru in 2014 for the summer for 4 months, like our summer.
Yeah.
So like from June to like end of September,
Hmm.
and like I've been back a few times since, but for 2 weeks or whatever for vacation, but also to see family. And I think too, just with pride, emerged into the like not the French,
It's French,
but
right?
then also too, I just speak in Spanish pretty often. Like I'll be honest with you, my Spanish writing now is better than my French because I never write in French
Because
ever.
so you practice. Okay, I want to ask you
Yeah,
something. I'm going to back up just a little bit here. I
yeah,
want to ask about you dating because of what you're seeing, what you're around. When you begin
right.
to get interested in being in dating, who are you dating? What's attractive to you? Is it the Spanish
That's a
girl?
funny
Is it your white?
question.
Who? Yes.
Um, well, Latin girls, yes, are very attractive. Latin girls are very attractive. Whoever I found cute and things like that. But I mean, now
Mm-hmm.
like I kind of know I have a type in a way, but I'm not. I'm not too sure.
What's your type? What's your type?
I love this question because nobody's ever asked me on podcasts, so I love this question. But I kind of realized that the girls like kind of go after. I don't mind you. I don't have any kids
Okay,
for
he's
right
single,
now.
ladies. He don't have no kids. Okay.
I don't. But the girls who are since I don't know when, since like a while, like who I've been attracted to have a relationship,
Okay.
like have been moms, like
Okay.
have been, for me it's okay. Like I'm not good because I
Okay.
know some people are like, oh, they have a kid, like I'm not dealing with them,
It's
and
it's a hard no for some people. So you're okay
yeah,
with them having it. That's it. You know what? That's that nurturing thing that you're attracted to. Yeah. That is so interesting. I never had that answer. That's interesting. And so when you just threw me because I wasn't ready for that answer.
I
So
know, but that's it. Like I've never said that like on a podcast, but it's just,
you
like I
didn't.
I don't know. I love
Mm-mm.
that question.
Yeah, and I ask the question because a lot of times when you speak to transracial adoptees, they are not raised around people that look like them, and so when they
Right.
begin to date and such, they just kind
Like
of go
right.
after
Like
what they've been seeing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it. Like I mean,
Yeah.
like oh my god.
Blushing.
Because I can say something, but I'm trying to learn how to say it
Just
because
say it. It's a safe place. Say it.
like I've said like Latin girls of course, but then also too like girls who have been like French Canadian and stuff, and
Because
like
that's
I
what you
said they've had
see.
a kid. Yeah, but like I
Look,
have
he's back on that kid.
but no, like I have like a type of like French Canadian girl I find like really attractive. and they seem to have a kid and just kind of have like, like a brunette or something like that. And I'm just like,
You
man,
have a type. We need
like,
to talk to some of your friends and see what that type is. French Canadian with
yeah,
the kid. That's the type.
yeah,
Got
that's
it.
it. And I'm like, I mean, like I'm not like shy to say it or embarrassed to say it. It's just it's funny. I like because it's true. And like I kind of started to like you're right. Like it's true. So like what can I say?
Yeah.
And,
And
and yeah,
like I said, I asked the question because I see that pattern when I speak to transracial
yeah,
adoptees and
yeah.
what they grew up around and what they see. So I was just curious. So that's why I had to backtrack a little bit because I wanted to know who you was checking out when you started dating.
Right. And that's the thing too. Like that's the thing too. Like me myself as a person, as a guy, and everything. I used to work in day camps when I was younger, when I was like 18, 17. I was a camper at the day camp, and then I was a counselor at the day camp. It wasn't an overnight camp or anything. It was just like a day camp, like 9 to 5, right, during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd always worked there. So, like, I'm good with kids, I'm not one of those people who are like, oh, I don't know. Well, with like an infant, I don't really know what to do apart from, I'm but once they're like 3 and stuff like that, like, I'm really easy like with the kids. I know how to, whatever. But because I think too, because like I said, like I'm just used to friends overseas and things like that having kids, or just
Yeah.
they're always being like my mom's friends who have kids or who are younger who are whatever.
Love this.
So like they've always been some type of like kid like around while I was growing up who was younger than, oh, I don't know what to do, or like, oh, like what do I do? And then I worked
I
at a
love
day
this.
camp. I worked at a day camp and I worked with 5 to 7 year olds. So
So
they're like
with
so easy to just, like you could do anything with
are
them, and
can
they
you?
love it.
Are they? Okay.
Maybe that,
I'm a mom. That's why I'm like
but back then, but like in day camp, 8, 9,
2000,
10.
right. Oh, me too, because my kids are grown
Yeah.
at this point. Well, I have a teenager, but I'm way past that
Yeah,
age
yeah,
spectrum.
but
Yeah,
like
yeah,
just
yeah.
like from the
So
age, I just mean like from the age of like I guess 4 to 7, like they're easily entertained. Apart from a 10 year
easily,
old who like would be like, oh, that's boring, or
I
like
get
you're
it. I get it. I
yeah.
get it. So let me ask you this question. Your adoptive parents, what was their conversation with you about being adopted? Aside from your like why we adopted you, but did they ever have a conversation with you and say, um, you're adopted and here's why, and like how do you feel about being adopted? Did they ever have that conversation with you?
I feel like the question of like you're adopted, like since I've kind of was molded into me, I knew.
Right.
But the question of what you just said, I really like the last question you said of like, did they ever ask you like, how does it feel or anything? Like, not really. Maybe in the past year and a bit, they've kind of like said that in a way, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely not growing up. They were never like, how does it feel to be adopted? And that's something which just recently, a month ago, actually, something like that. Um, I was speaking with another adoptee, and I was like, I've never said this ever my whole life, or out loud, I guess, or maybe just with like another adoptee. It just, I with my friends, and how, of course, they're not adopted. I do have adopted friends, but just, like my group of friends who are who are raised by their parents.
Their parents, right?
Their, I don't know how you say it, but
Their parents, yeah.
yeah, their parents, their parents. Um, and I've never been like, man, it's hard to be an adoptee, and I've never said that until this year, a month ago, and I did start saying this a bit more, not all the time, but just times where I think it's appropriate in things, because like my friends who are not adoptive, like they watch like whatever I'm on a podcast or a show or stuff like that, but at the same time too, like uh, they don't like, I've never said those type of things like, man, it's hard to be an adoptee, or like, oh, like I feel like adoption trauma a lot today, or stuff like that. Like I've never really
Yeah.
said that with them, and
And
I
when did
think
you
like
start picking up on the
outside,
fact that you would feel like that? Because I can speak for myself. Those things didn't come to much later in life. Well, I would deal with stuff, not really realizing I was dealing with some adoption stuff.
Exactly. Me too. And the pandemic really helped me like for that because
Mm.
we skipped so much stuff. But like I said, I went back to Peru so many times, and when I in
Oh, I'm
2010,
going
we'll
back to some
backtrack
stuff.
a
Don't
little bit.
worry.
In
My questions are coming
2010,
back. No,
after
we're
coming,
for sure. Go
perfect.
back.
My second time from being in Peru, but my first time alone without my dad, my adoptive father. I saw poverty and things like that, and I was like, I want to do something about it. Things like I love helping and stuff like that, and I went. Of course, like at the time, I could have just. I probably did like looked up on the internet like an NGO, like a nonprofit, and whatever. But at the same time, too, like um, I wanted more. Not just like a website. I wanted but that's just me. Things which I really believe in, and things like even foundations of like, oh, like donate $20 and we'll plant a tree. I'm like, no, like I want the groundwork. Like, I want to go to the Peruvian consulate
Yeah.
in Montreal because I was like, oh, like I want to know like giving half. So they can, I think, a few papers. I might like, and a nice and I don't really know. Well, I guess maybe that's the reason why, or maybe he just had a feeling that the guy who worked there. I don't know his name. I would love to know his name because he changed my life, and
Mm.
I still feel to this day that like I'm a true believer in the universe, and the universe sets up things and moments and things like that, good or bad. But I kind of feel like he wasn't a real person, but he was obviously. It just is so like a dream. Because he asked me,
Yeah, like
"Hey,
a
are you adopted?"
unicorn.
Yeah, because he was like, "Hey, are you adopted?" He was like, "Hey, are you adopted?"
Huh.
And I was like, yeah. And he's like, "Oh, cool." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "Oh, do you want to know who your biological parents are?" And I'm like I had no time to think. It was on okay, like no time to process anything. Just okay or no. I said okay.
Right.
And then he's like, "Okay, give me your driving license, your ID, whatever I had in my wallet, not my passport, like just my ID, whatever." And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I gave it to him. He looked, and I think like definitely not not an hour, not 30 minutes, not 15 minutes, 5 minutes maybe at the most. And he's like on his computer, and he turns the screen. It's like, "Look, this is your adoptive mom. This is your biological mom." And then he types again, "Look, this is your biological father." He's like, "What a pageant!"
Now.
Yeah, in the profile for my biological mom, it was actually not her number. It was a cousin. And my cousin answered into my dad's sister, so my uncle's sister. So I'll pass the message on, and then like hopefully they'll get back to you. And then I left them my number and things, and that's what he told me. The guy like who was working there because he also spoke French. Okay, thank you so much. And like I went back to my apartment, and of course like I had my moment and I cried, and I just was like full of emotion.
That is
Yeah,
talk about a way to find or meet your birth family. Like,
because that's it. I know people like they go investigation, pay money, or like a million things, or like a million things, and me it was just as easy as looking in a phone book for somebody.
and had it ever even occurred to you to like in the back of your mind, one day I'm gonna go and find them, or did
Honestly,
you
because that was after the second time I went to Peru, and the second time I went to Peru, I was there for 2 weeks, staying with my teacher's
with the
father, and he lived like in a wealthy part of the city and everything like that. But at the same, that she was alive, like I would have those questions when I would go home after being out, when I would go back to his place after being out all day and everything like that. And at that time too,
Mhm.
like everything was new, so I would go like everywhere, to the markets, to crazy places which I shouldn't have probably gone, like everywhere. And just like I remember like having questions in my head, like in bed that night or whatever night, and being like, did like
Right.
and I was
Right.
like, is she dead? Like, is
Because
she
of what
still
the
alive?
unrest that was going on. Yeah.
All of those like popped in my head. So uh, I don't know like if I really don't. And that's the thing too. Like, I wish I could go back to that moment where I found out, where like he told me that, the guy that considered that she was alive and that my father was alive too. Just that little information that they were still breathing, because I wish I could go back to that state of where my mind was and what I was thinking and feeling, because I feel like I blocked it out in a way unconsciously, because I don't really remember. Like, of course, I was like happy, sad, and a bunch of things when I went back to my apartment, but in that moment, like, and even when I was, of course, I was crying, like, because I was sad, happy, and things. But I really wish at least I could have written in a journal or something, like how I actually was feeling,
In that moment. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. So take me to when you meet your birth family.
When I met my biological mom, it was the next year, and after like we gave her my number, well, we gave my cousin my number and everything. I think a week later or something like that, I got a call when I was at my parents' house, and over the weekend, because I went up to the Laurentians because I was living in the city at the time for school, and I got a call, and it was like my biological mom, and she's like, "Hi," and I'm like, "Hola," and she's like, "Hi, it's so and so, like I'm your mom," and this and that, and that too, like I didn't, and that too, like I
Nice.
don't have that call when, like I remember talking to her, and that and where I was. I remember where I was in my house then and everything, but I don't remember what was exchanged, which I would love to remember and go deep into those feelings. Um, because then after that, she would call me every Sunday, and we would try to speak in Spanish, or I'd try to speak in Spanish as best as I could.
Right.
Because since then, like she knows every people who are close to me know, like, your Spanish was really not that great then. Like, now, like, you can make phrases, you can like say a lot, you can express yourself. And I'll just tell you this too, like since two years now, I think 2 years, maybe 2 years. Like I decided it's not my first time taking therapy, but my first time actually like consistent.
I
And
love
my
that.
and she's Spanish,
Okay.
and so I do Spanish in therapy in Spanish.
Okay. That's amazing. And how
It
has therapy been for you?
too, like, that's it. Like, I decided to do it in Spanish because, one, it would be a challenge for me, but a bit, but also too because I think like too, like, therapy I know here and in the States is really expensive if you don't have like your job or something supporting you in this.
Mm-hmm.
So so uh so that's why I decided to do it, because it's definitely a lot cheaper to do it in Spanish. It's really a
Okay.
lot cheaper. Like what I would pay for one therapy session here in Canada would be like for a 1 week, a full month of one time a week.
At one time. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And
like,
and that's certainly helping you with your Spanish because you have to have a whole session in
yeah,
Spanish.
yeah.
So I want to
So
ask about your birth family. So your
yeah.
birth mom and birth dad, they were they married or
No, they just
they
were
were not?
partners.
They were partners.
And
Okay.
yeah, like the first time after that, and I met like I found out who they were and they were alive and everything. I went back the next year, or the fall of that year, to meet my biological mom. I went alone. I know my parents asked like, "Oh, like we want to go with you, and we come?" And I honestly, I said no. I was like, no, like I want to do this for me. It's like my thing. Like and I didn't mean it in a disrespectful way or
Absolutely
anything.
not.
It's just I want. It was something I needed to do for myself, and like
Mhm.
I still think I would, if me this like today, if that happened, I still definitely
Yeah.
would have had more tools in my tool bag now that I'm
Yeah.
older. But still, then too, like when I actually met my biological mom, like in person, since being an infant, I don't really. I remember bits and parts of that first conversation we had, and like both of us crying in her room and things like that, and like meeting my biological sister for the first time, and my younger brother for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
who's like younger. So like I'm the middle child.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, so that was that, and like I met some family members and things like that. Unfortunately, we kept that relationship from 2010 or 2011 to 2019,
Mm-hmm.
and I would see 2018, and I would see them every time I'd go back to Peru, and like I wouldn't stay there all the time because Lima's a huge city, and to get to one part of Lima to the next, it literally takes like 2 hours or something. So they live in like a really
Poverty stricken
poverty
area.
area.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, of course like I could stay there, but then also too like I don't want to sound ungrateful or anything because they definitely fed me and things like that. But like, like there wasn't a lot I could do around there because they're just of their
Just
situation and just also to life. And and this is why I'm really happy and thankful that, like of course they wanted to spend time with me and whatever, but we never did much. Like we never really like went as a family like to the park or like out like for dinner, and like a few times I would be like, don't worry about it, like I'll pay, like don't worry about it. And maybe then too, like if I saw them again, like I don't even think I would ask. I would just get it, bring it, that's it, no questions asked, instead of being like, hey, like would you like to go over dinner, like hey, would you like me to
mm-hmm.
bring food, because maybe they were just trying to be polite, or maybe they just, I'm not sure, but they would always say like, no, no, it's okay, no, 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 and that hurts me because I'm trying to build a connection with
Try,
you.
and there, I understand that. But you said up until 2018, have you not had contact with them? Did something happen in
With my
2018?
sister, I've had contact with a few times over Messenger, but I haven't spoken to my biological mom in a year. But before that year, it had been since 2018, because like also too like when I would go and I would be leaving, or also too like my biological mom needed an operation in her stomach because she had some type of thing. I like raised money for her here and things like that. So um, I helped her out like for her operation and things, and she was very thankful. But then also too, like when I would leave Peru and I had, I don't know, $20 in my pocket in their currency, which like I didn't have any use for here. I'd be like, here, like just take this money, like I don't need it, or here, like take this money, pay like your water or your electricity, or I don't even know, because where they live, like they don't have like a plumbing system, or like
Oh,
I
okay.
guess that's what you call it.
Yeah.
Like it's literally a truck that comes and fills up your big like water tank, and that's your water that you use for your shower and for cooking and everything like that.
Okay.
So um that was like, hey, like pay that. But like one year in 2017, 18, we didn't talk for a while, and she stopped calling every Sunday after the first time we met, or like something like that. So it wasn't like for years she was calling every Sunday.
Okay.
But we would talk when I would call and things like that. And at the phone time too, she didn't have a smartphone because I gave her my old cell phone that I would use there. And just unfortunately, like we lost touch, and she, I guess, decided not to, or I'm not sure, like to keep in contact
Okay.
with me. And
But you were
like,
still connected with your sibling.
yeah, and I would like ask like, hey, like why isn't like she picking up the phone? What's going on? Things like that. And she'd be like, oh, I guess like the cell signal doesn't work at home, or I don't know. And but after you say that for a month,
Ever.
2 months,
Right. Yeah. It's like,
it's
okay,
like,
I
what the
get it.
hell's going on?
Yeah.
And anyways, that happened. That went on for a good half a year or something like that. Um, and then I spoke to like I still have some of my cousins and everything on Facebook and things like that, but I don't talk to them very
like that.
much.
Mm-hmm.
But and how she's doing and like, do you have her number? And like, yeah, we have her number, and here, like, I'll pass it to you. And it was a new number, so she just like switched numbers, but didn't give me the new her new cell phone number. So that's why the calls weren't going in, because the other one was closed.
Right.
So like I found that out, and like I wrote her like, hey, like on WhatsApp app, because I saw that she had a WhatsApp app now, and that's what they use a lot there. So it's like, hey, like I don't know if you really want to talk to me or anything, but what's up? Like I haven't spoken to you in a while,
And what she said.
and she just played it off cool, like, oh, no, I maybe she was like, oh, number, my bad, and blah blah blah. Like, then she's just like, oh, hey, how are you? Like stuff like that, like kind of just played it off cool. And I understand that to a point, but hey, like I'm, I don't know, I kind of felt bad. And
Yeah.
then I think we spoke once or twice.
Do you think you
Over
went into that with expectations that, okay, now I know my bio mom and we're going to build some kind of relationship?
Yeah, but the thing is, like, the relationship was kind of always really hard. It never was very, very close because, like I said, like when I would try to go do things with them, they would say no. So it's like, well, how am I building a relate?
How?
Of course, I'm spending time with you guys in your house and eating with you guys, but at the same time, too, like, I wouldn't do much when and
We're just
that.
sitting
But I
here.
understand. But I understand too. That's a. I'm not no like shame on them or anything like
No,
that.
no,
I
no,
don't
I
want
understand.
people to take it,
But for
but
you, you're trying to build a relationship and
yeah,
they're like, I'm here, let's go do. And they would always
yeah.
say no
Yeah,
for whatever reason. Did you
and
ever
I
get to
think
meet your bio dad?
um, I'll get into that in a minute.
Okay.
No, it's okay, another like thing, but yeah, and that's it. Like that's what happened with her. And then she like my biological mom like asked for like if I could send her some money, and I just didn't think it was very proper at the time because we just started talking again, and I just was like then too like I was I think 27, something like that, or I don't know. It was back in 2018, and I just like people knew because I kind of I have my friends and my friends there who they've known me since I was literally 18 years old, so more
Hmm.
than 10 years. So they knew that I was feeling a certain way of like,
As you should, because I have that. My bio mom did something very similar.
yeah,
And I was like, oh, that was inappropriate. And no.
yeah. So since I was feeling a certain way and things like I didn't know like should I should I like just keep quiet, send the money and that's it, or should I like express myself, right? And they're like, I
I
think
expressed myself.
yeah,
She never asked
exactly.
again.
Exactly. My friend was like, Adrian, like, I think it's time that you express yourself and how you're feeling because you've told me this
Absolutely.
and you've told me this and like how you've been feeling this way for a while now. So like, I think you should just express yourself. And
Absolutely.
that's what I did. And like, I didn't say anything like, I don't remember really because it was 5 years ago
I'm sure
or
you
six
weren't
years ago.
rude. You were
Yeah, but
just
that's it.
kind
Like,
of,
like
what it
definitely,
is, right?
that's it for her to be like,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I do know like sometimes when I am mad, like mad and things like I think anybody too, but like I'm intense. Like I go for what I feel, and um, just she didn't like that, so she was like, oh, it's okay. I'll never ask like for money again. You have a better life than me, so like you should be the one
Oh,
who's
well,
like,
the guilt trip. No, we're not doing that.
yeah,
We're not
and
doing that.
yeah. So then like. I was just like, you know what? Like, you know what? Like, I'm not, like, okay. And I left it, but then the next day, like, it was on in my head the whole day, the whole night. So the next morning, like, I responded with a 5-minute voice note, and I have no idea if
Who
she
knows
listened to it or
what
not.
she's right? Yeah.
Yeah,
And you were
but
not.
whatever.
Let me say this: you were not wrong to voice your opinion. And when we meet our birth families, and in our minds, we've imagined whatever. But then when you meet them and find out it is what it is, you just kind of have to let the chips fall where they may, and don't be like you're not wrong. And I hope that you
Yeah,
know
yeah,
that you're
yeah,
not
for
wrong.
sure. And I think, And I think too, like, because I know a lot of Peruvian adoptees and other adoptees in general too, and I always tell them that if like they're not in reunion yet and they're going to meet their biological family who are in a month or whatever in the future, I always tell anything, and we'll think we'll do,
And
like
it's
it
not a
could.
fairy tale. It could
So
be,
it
but
could be,
don't
and
go in it like that.
exactly
Be
thing,
ready.
like the people who just they met them and everything goes very well, and like much praise to you guys, and like I like great, and I love that. But at the same time too, like you also have to be ready that like it can go up, down, and then just down, and that's it. So like it's just how it is,
It is what it is. So now I can't wait
and
to hear the story about your bio dad. 'Cause I feel
and
like
and
it's
that's
gonna be
it,
a
like
good
and
one.
and that's it, like because and I feel not even sometimes I kind of feel like bad kind of being like the odd one out to be like, oh, be ready for anything, or like
Oh
just
no, I
please,
say
like,
it all the time.
but I have to be realistic with them, and I'm not
Yeah.
trying to crush
No,
anybody's
no, no,
dreams or
no.
anybody,
Absolutely
no.
not. I said because I'm in reunion with both sides, and
Yeah,
I say it all the time. Be ready for anything,
yeah,
ups, downs,
yeah,
and you don't know what how people are going to respond to you. You don't know how they feel
yeah,
about, and it could be very good in the beginning, and then kind of maybe go to the left, or maybe not quite go the way that you want it to go. But just be ready for anything because it's a lot for everybody.
exactly.
It's a lot for everybody. So
Exactly, and that's why, like, I love that you say that too, um, and that's what happened with her. And then, like, last year, I was at a job and I'm working with Spanish people, and they're like, I told them a bit of my story, and they're like, well, like, why haven't you just tried to pick up the phone and contact her? Because so much time has passed, like 5 years at the time. So they're like, the only thing that she could do is just hang up the phone. That's it. Like, and then you know your answer. So I was like, oh, so like I don't know. And then like I finally just did it.
hmm
And I called and I was like, hey, and she answered. She's like, hello, and she's like, who is this? And she didn't recognize the number because it's calling from a calling card. And she was just like, I told her who it was, and she's like, oh, hey, and like she wasn't like, don't talk to me, bye. Like, but like we had a nice conversation. It was like I told her like, oh, like I'm in like the adoptee world now, and just like voicing like my story, and just like trying to like I'm in therapy too, and I'm just like trying to also reflect on everything that has happened to me, and just how I feel and just all those things. And she was like, wow, well, that's like really good for you. And like, I'm really happy for you and things like that. And it was a very casual talk. I think it's like 20, 15 minutes. And there was no, like I even said, like, I don't even know if you want to talk to me or anything like that because of what happened. So like so many years ago. And she's just like, it's in the past, like, don't go back there.
yeah,
So that's
for
what,
sure.
and I was like, cool. And I do know, like, I'm happy about that because I do have like aunts and uncles on my Facebook, and like they didn't even know some of them like things because they'd be like, oh, I'd be like, oh, how are you, blah blah, and then they'd be like, so like, have you talked to your mom lately? And I'd be like, no, like I haven't talked to her in 3 years or 2 years, and they'd be like, what? And I'd be like, yeah, it's just like, and I don't want to like like throw her under the bus or try to make it seem like, oh, they're like, no, just we had a discussion about like something, and then she didn't like how I responded, and like and they're like, oh, like, yeah, she's like that, and like just she doesn't know how to um control her emotions and things,
Yeah.
and like stuff like that. So like of course she was like, okay, like thank you for letting me know that and things. So that's what happened with my mom. But now like I haven't spoken to her in a year, but no, I think on both sides there's no like anger, there's no love
Yeah, it just
lost,
kind of
there's
is
just
what it
it.
is, and it's okay.
Yeah,
It's okay.
yeah, yeah. And I do talk to my sister sometimes. I'm like, oh, like, how is everybody? How is everything? And she's not like, oh, we don't want to talk to you. We just don't talk that much. And I think that's
Yeah,
also why we don't
and
have a connection.
it's okay. Like we
Yeah.
said, when you do this, let the chips fall where they may,
Because I think for a
and that's
lot
what
of
it
the
is.
time when I was younger, I was really trying to force that connection and trying to, but
hmm
now I'm just like, hey, well, I'll do my best to be closer to them and things, but if it can't be, then it can't be, right? Um,
Right, and whatever
and
it's gonna be is gonna
yeah,
be. Yeah.
And since I've gotten more into the adoptee community and world and everything since 2 or 3 years ago, um, um, I found out about my biological father because when I was talking when I was talking a lot with my mom then and seeing her and things like I'd ask like once or twice like, oh, like where is he, and she'd always just be like, oh, he has another family, he's somewhere else. That's all. Like and I didn't really want to, like I didn't want to over. I guess I have the right to ask and I have the right
Oh,
to
you
ask.
had the right to ask, but I understand
But
that you didn't
I
want to
guess
continue to ask.
yeah,
Got
but I
that.
guess like too, like I was in too, and I was just like trying to be polite, or just not really trying to. I don't know, like I don't know why I didn't really ask as much as I could have. I just like, oh, like okay, I didn't really
You
like.
probably you sensed that she felt some type of way about it, and so you're like, okay,
Yeah,
let me
yeah,
just back up a
exactly.
little
So I just
bit.
like, okay, well that's it, like that's it for that. But I'm still trying since 2 years to get my Peruvian identity or like my ID card and then later on a passport. And because it's possible since like I was born there and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
and I know a lot of other Peruvians who have gotten it, who are adopted. So when I was doing that information and through a friend, she's Peruvian, she lives there. Her name is Sarah, and through her, like I asked when we're doing my paperwork and things, and they have to ask like, oh, who's your biological mom and who's your biological dad, and I knew all this information, so I told them, and I have all the paperwork that says it, and I was like, oh, by the way, like since we're just, doing these paperwork and things, like I don't really know like about my dad much, so do you think like you could just like, and I'm not talking to my mom either at the moment, so like
Right.
what's the hurt in looking what's the hurt in
Absolutely, because you
so
have a
that's
right
what I
to
did.
know
Yeah, so that's
what
what I
happened.
did. And at the beginning they're like, we looked in the system and stuff, but we couldn't find anything about him. Like there's nothing really about him that says like where he is or anything. And they're like, that either means like he passed away or something like that. So she was like, I'm sorry, like I guess your dad passed away. And I was like, okay. And I lived with that for a day. And I was like, okay. But she's like, don't quote me on it, but at the same time too, it's looking like that.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, okay. And then 2 days later, or a day later, or something like that, and all in a week, she's like, "Hey, we found out he's not dead. If we found out that, it actually could also mean like when their files like protected in a way in their system where you can't find out a lot of information. It's either because they've passed away or he's incarcerated. We don't know what for, but he's incarcerated. That's all we know."
Okay.
And I was like, okay. And I feel like, okay, that's all we can do for you. Like that's like, and I was like, okay, cool, thank you. And since I know people there and I have resources and things like that. I have a friend, Luis, and I was like, hey, Luis, like, do you know anybody who's like a lawyer or something like that? Like, I really want to know like why he's in jail
Right,
and
because I want to
why
know
he's in
too.
jail and like what jail too. But I had a feeling like he wasn't in Lima, in the capital. I had a feeling he was back where I was born in Huancayo. I had a feeling because I think my biological mom told me that he went back there to live. So I had a feeling like he was like in jail there. um, so yes, he is in jail, and he's I think getting out like next year or something. But I haven't been back to Peru since 2018. I would love to go back I'd love to go back and things, and I always want to go back. But I'd
You're
love
not
to
gonna
really
tell
try to
us
go
what?
back.
Wait, you're not gonna tell us why he's in jail? Do you know?
I do know,
You're
I
not
do
gonna tell us.
know. I could tell you off air because it's
Got
just
it.
like I'll say this
I had
though
to ask for the people because when they watch
for
this,
sure. I'll just say this. I'll just say this. It's not because he like robbed like it's not because he stole money or anything like that.
okay,
It's like other
got it.
things.
We'll move on.
So
I'll leave it alone. We'll move on.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So that's it. So like the next time I do go to Peru, which hopefully will be at the end of this year, like I always would love. I miss it a lot. It's been 6 years now. Like I really
Mm,
miss my country.
yeah,
It's home. Even though I've lived here my whole life, it's still home.
I
every time I go back, like when I in the airport and they're like, "Oh, what, bienvenido," like "welcome back." I'm like, "Thanks," and a big smile. Like of course, I'm Canadian too. I don't neglect that, but my roots and where my story is at the beginning of my life and what I feel apart from just Canadian, I feel Peruvian, like 1,000%.
I love that. As you should. As you should.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question, though, because now at this point you've found both sides and haven't necessarily reconnected with your bio dad, but your adoptive parents. How do they feel about all this?
Well, they knew about my mom and everything, and they knew about like our like fallout and everything. Like I told them like very shortly after it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like I told them, like, my adoptive mom, she was just like, well, that's very like unfortunate and things like that. And she's like, well, like at least you tried, and well, like are you? I don't know, my adoptive mom, and she's always just been like through this whole process and journey of me like really supportive. So they've never been like, no, like don't do that, or like no, like what are you doing? Like of course, in some ways they like no, you're not
just
going.
never, because there's some parents that adoptive parents that feel some
And
type of way.
I
When we
feel
don't
so
do
I feel
this.
in situations because I'm like, that's not right, and like I hold a lot of
right.
So the
That's
next time I do go to
hear. That's super good to hear because my parents are very supportive in all this as well. So, yeah, it makes a difference too because a lot of times when adoptive parents try and stop us from doing this, it makes us feel guilty, and then we don't.
And for I imagine like for because I know I'm not happy, so I mean, like not making a bad things, but it's
a whole thing. So for my final question, and I want to. Before I ask you your final question, what I want to say, I love how immersed you are in your culture and who you are. So I want to give credit to your adoptive parents because clearly they did a good job because you're very balanced and it shows in your conversation. And the fact that you've been able to go back to your home country and do these things, you don't hear about that a lot, especially when people don't, it's a whole nother country. You don't hear about that a lot. So like you're very unique in that. And I hope you know that and continue to encourage people to do what you've done because it's amazing. So my last question for the adoptees that come from another country, such as yourself, and then were adopted by someone from another country and they were raised totally away from their own culture.
Their first culture.
Yeah, their first culture. I love that. What would you say to them, especially like as anybody listening and they're trying to figure it out? What would you say to them?
I would say if they're like keen on learning about their first culture, I would tell them that they should just start in any way they can and any not material but any like resources that they can find, if it's books, recipes, a cooking class for Peruvian food or Dominican food or whatever food, start somewhere. Like of course like the learning their first culture language could be a big thing and they might not be ready for that, but just baby steps, just go like I said, like to Vietnamese restaurant or like Vietnamese cooking class or a Vietnamese like festival for I don't know one of their holidays or something like that. Just start somewhere to just because that's honestly how I started too a bit. I like would start to go to like the Peruvian festivals here in the city and kind of opted and just like with soccer, like I'm a big soccer fan for the national Peruvian team, and just like like just little things, if it's through culture, if it's through sports, if it's through books or cooking, and it's something from where they work from.
I love that. YouTube University and TikTok are probably their friends to begin with.
Yeah, and there's a lot of silly stuff and not like things too.
Information.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for coming and sharing your story. You're going to help somebody for sure. You have a very unique story, and I love that.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And don't go anywhere. Just Hang
No,
on
no.
one second. And until next week, bye, family.
Journey, journey, on, journey, journey, on. You need a pie, what they get good? Oh yeah, what is the one? Adoption.